Alright, last Thursday was the MLB trade deadline, and what a wild trade deadline it was. We saw a record 43 trades on trade deadline day. That was the most since the year 2000. So I'm going to break down some of these trades, not all of them, who I think the winners and losers are of the trade deadline, and we're going to go from there. We're going to absolutely dig deep into these, and we will see what happens. So the first trade we're going to dig deep into that actually happened on trade deadline day, aside from is Taylor Rogers, not Tyler Rogers, the former. He was a longtime reliever for the San Francisco Giants. Was having a phenomenal year with the Giants this year. And he was traded to the Mets. In exchange, the Mets got Jose Butto, right-hand pitcher. They also got righty Blake Tidwell. And they got outfield prospect Drew Gilbert, who was number 12 in the Mets system. Now, that was a lot to give up for a reliever, because Tidwell has some MLB experience. He's been decent. Butto has been inconsistent. Drew Gilbert is this probably centerpiece of the trade. The Giants need some young outfield prospects. And they got them. And they got one. Gilbert, I think, is going to be a stud. This trade was, it was a little bit of an overpay for the Mets because to give up a lot for a reliever. So overall, the next trade I'm going to go over has actually happened the day before the deadline as well. Was right-hand pitcher Johan Duran. He was the closer for the Twins. He was having a phenomenal year with the Twins this year. He was playing like one of the best closers in baseball. He has that really cool entrance. He was having a 1.93 ERA this year, but then they traded him with 2 years of control left. They traded him to the Phillies, and the Phillies got left-handed pitcher Mick Abel, who's been somewhat inconsistent this year. He made some major league appearances, but nothing too great. He was their number 4 prospect, and catcher Eduardo Tate, who was Philadelphia's number 6 prospect. So this gives them a catcher for the future and a possible member of their rotation down the line. Ryan Helsley was traded to the Mets. Rafael Montero to the Tigers. Soroka to the Cubs. There was a 3-team trade that involved Zach Little going to the Reds and stuff like that with the Rays and Dodgers. Next trade was Eugenio Suarez to the Mariners from the Diamondbacks. He had 36 home runs this year, which is the most for deadline before being traded. The big centerpiece of the trade the Diamondbacks got was Tyler Locklear, who Locklear had some experience last year with the MLB. He had some experience last year with the big league club. He wasn't anything super duper. He wasn't anything super duper extravagant, but it worked out. Like, it wasn't anything super duper. And yeah. All right, the next trade we are going to detail after that. So we are going to look at, Andrew Kicksher was traded. Shane Bieber was traded from Cleveland to Toronto. There's a few other small trades. Ben Wartfett was traded in the Zach Little deal. So was Paulie Gervais from Rays to the Dodgers. Hunter Fiducia was traded from the Dodgers to the Rays to probably be their backup catcher. But this next trade that happened the night before the trade deadline was absolutely insane. The Padres traded for Mason Miller and J.P. Sears, both of whom are closers, or both of whom are pitchers. J.P. Sears is a rotation arm, and Mason Miller is a closer. And A.J. Preller went all out to acquire these two. Miller still had a good is controllable through 2029, and Sears is controllable through 2028. And the pieces that the A's got number 3 prospect in all of baseball, Leo DeVries. They got the Padres' number 3, Braden Nett, their number 13th, Henry Baez, and number 17, Eduardo Nunez. So that was quite a lot for closer and a bat in the middle of the rotation starter. So it's crazy. Like, Miller was phenomenal, don't get me wrong, but I feel like that's a bit of an overpay. There is talks that the Padres could transition the 26-year-old Mason Miller back into the rotation at some point, so that remains to be seen. Also, a weird trade was the Cardinals traded left-hand pitcher Steven Matz to the Red Sox for Blaze Jordan. Blaze Jordan was a former top prospect in the Red Sox system. Didn't really have much of a future. Steven Matz is going to be probably a back-end rotation, if not long reliever for Boston. Kyle Finnegan was traded from the Nationals to the Tigers. Brock Stewart went from Minnesota to Los Angeles, or to the Dodgers, and that was only the beginning of this fire sale. They also got James Outman in that deal, who was a serviceable outfielder. Harrison Bader got dealt to the Phillies from the Twins as well. David Bednar got traded to the Yankees for catcher Rafael Flores, catcher Egleen Perez, and outfielder Brian Sanchez. Now, this trade was not a great trade for them. For the Pirates, because they got two catchers and outfielder, none of which wasn't the greatest return. So Yankees get a solidified closer. They also got Camille Duvall and Jake Bird in their bullpen, and then they also managed earlier to get Ryan McMahon and Ahmed Rosario, and they got Austin Slater as well to play in the outfield. So they had quite the active deadline. Freddie Fermin, this is another weird trade. The Padres got Freddie Fermin in exchange for right-handed pitchers Ryan Bergert and Steven Kolek. They were both decent and highly touted pitchers in the Padres system, but they traded them anyways. And so the Padres got a catcher who is decent but not great. The Mets got Cedric Mullins for a nice little package. And then this next trade we're going to break down something a little interesting, and it's a little surprising given the circumstances. So, Carlos Correa. So we know Carlos Correa spent the first 6 years of his career with the Houston Astros. He hit free agency after the 2021 season. He signed a one-year contract to join the Minnesota Twins. Then he hit free agency after that year. There's a whole thing about him signing with the Mets and then the Giants. Those fell through. He went back to the Twins on a long 6-year contract. This year hasn't gone the way the Twins have thought, and he did struggle this year. He was struggling a bit this year with the Twins, and he spoke with the front office. He didn't like where the team was going. He did have a no trade clause, and there was talks. The Astros were in talks to acquire Carlos Correa again, and that actually came to fruition. They got Carlos Correa, and cash were sent to the Astros in exchange for a left-handed reliever in the minor league system. Correa has 3 club options on his deal that runs through 2028, and he's moving to third base because the Astros got Jeremy Pena at shortstop. So that's one of those moves where it's like, I don't know what was going on, but yeah, Twins fire sale continued. They traded Danny Columb to the Rangers. Jesus Sanchez got traded from the Marlins to the Astros. But this next trade we're going to look over is something else in its own right as well. It is when the Padres continued to dominate, and they got Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano from Baltimore. They sent 6 players that way. To get them. They also got infielder Will Wagner from the Blue Jays in exchange for a random catching prospect. Merrill Kelly got traded to the Rangers in exchange for some prospects. Willie Castro got traded to the Cubs. Bailey Falter to the Royals. Dustin May got sent to Boston, which is good for him because it clears out a spot in LA's rotation because they had a lot going on. Jose Caballero got traded in the middle of a doubleheader from the Rays to the Yankees and was suiting up for the Yankees in the next game. Adrian Hauser got traded from the White Sox to the Rays, which brought back Curtis Mead, who recently got called up to the big leagues after they placed Miguel Vargas on the injured list. We already went over Camilo Doval being traded from the Giants to the Yankees. Griffin Jacks got moved from Minnesota to Tampa Bay. Taj Bradley got moved from the Rays to the Twins to help give the Twins a controllable pitching arm. Mike Yastrzemski got traded from the Giants to the Royals. Nestor Cortez, longtime Yankees starter, played with the Brewers this year, got traded to the Padres for Brandon Lockridge. Shelby Miller and Jordan Montgomery wound up in Milwaukee for cash. The Brewers wanted Miller, but they also get Montgomery. Montgomery in pitching this year. Tommy John surgery. Miller's on the IL right now, but the Brewers are hoping to get him back. Right-handed pitcher Louis Varland and first baseman Ty France were sent from the Twins to the Blue Jays. Alan Roden, the left fielder, was sent to Minnesota in exchange. Taylor Rogers was traded again after he was originally traded to the Pirates in the Key Brian Hayes deal. He got traded to the Cubs. Matt Manning got traded in a last minute, and Oswaldo. So my overall winners of the trade deadline are the Astros, Padres, Yankees, Mets, and A's. Now, it sounds like weird to put the A's on there, but the A's, because of what they got back from Mason Miller and J.P. Sears, like they managed to get a haul back for relievers who aren't going to play. Mets went all in. Mets and Yankees went all in. They got better bats, and they bolstered their bullpens. Definite winners. Yankees got Bednar, Bird, Doval, McMahon, Rosario. Mets got Rogers, Helsley, Mullins. So they bolstered their bullpen a lot as well. Padres won because they pretty much gutted their entire farm system to go all in this year. Astros won too because they were in negotiations for a while to get Dylan Cease from the Padres, but that didn't work out. So some losers. Twins pretty much gave up on the year. They pretty much traded their entire. They traded 9 of their 20. They pretty much traded 40% of their 40-man roster, which is 26, which is crazy. So they're now entering like a rebuild phase of their own. So they got good hauls back, but who knows? The Braves are a weird one. The Braves didn't really make many moves, but the issue with the Braves is they're in no condition to make the playoffs, but they still didn't make any moves. Marcelo Ozuna is a free agent at the end of the year. They held on to him. Raziel Iglesias, their closer, is also a free agent at the end of the year, and they held on to him. So it's not like they had a willingness to really get prospects to help them, even though they're far out of a playoff spot right now. I already went on Twins. Pirates are losers as well. The Pirates had three rental guys: Tommy Pham, Isaac Kiner-Falefa, and Andrew Heaney, who've all had decent years this year. That they signed 1-year deals in the offseason with the goal of, if they play well enough, they'll trade them. Per the Pirates GM Ben Cherington, they didn't feel it necessary to trade them, so they did not trade them, and well, they're stuck with the Pirates when they probably figured they were going to be traded. So Pirates are probably the worst ran organization in baseball, despite what the Rockies and White Sox have done. The White Sox and Rockies actually were smart and sold off assets when they needed to. So, yeah. But I'd like to know what you guys thought about this trade deadline. It was a wicked one. It was a wild one. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like the button, or hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't yet. I'll see you all in the next video.